Most people think growing food means planting once, harvesting once, and starting all over again. That is the modern mistake. We have been trained to see food like a product on a shelf. You buy it, use it, and replace it. But for thousands of years, traditional growers, village families, and old-world gardeners understood something much smarter. They did not only grow plants that gave one quick harvest, they grew plants that kept giving, plants that could feed a family again and again, plants that did not disappear after one meal, plants that turned a small garden, a balcony, a backyard corner, or even a few containers into a living food system. And that matters more today than most people realize. Because modern food is expensive. Supermarket vegetables lose freshness quickly, and many people think they need acres of land to grow meaningful food. But some of the most productive plants in the world do not need much space at all. What they need is simple: sunlight, steady care, and someone who understands how to harvest them correctly. Today, we are breaking down 15 plants that keep producing food for months. Some give leaves again and again, some give pods, fruits, or shoots continuously if you keep picking them. Some were prized in traditional households because they could stretch meals, support nutrition, and reduce dependence on market food. And by the time we reach the later plants on this list, you will understand why old gardeners often valued continuous producers more than giant one-time crops. Because the real secret of food security is not always growing more. Sometimes it is growing plants that refuse to stop giving. 15. Lettuce. The leaf. That comes back when you stop cutting it wrong. Most people treat lettuce like a disposable plant. They let it grow into one full head, cut the whole thing, eat it for a few meals, and then the plant is finished. But traditionally, leafy greens were often managed differently. Instead of harvesting the whole plant, growers would take only the outer leaves and leave the center alive. That small change turns lettuce from a one-time harvest into a repeat food source. This is the principle known as cut and come again. The plant keeps its growing point intact, so it continues producing new leaves from the center. Instead of ending the plant's life, you are borrowing from it. And that is where lettuce becomes more powerful than people think. Lettuce is not the most calorie-dense crop, but it brings freshness, minerals, hydration, and volume to meals. In traditional kitchens, greens like this were used to stretch heavier foods, cool the body during warm seasons, and add quick nutrition without needing long cooking. Modern science also reminds us why leafy greens matter. Lettuce contains water, fiber, folate, potassium, and small amounts of protective plant compounds. Darker varieties, especially romaine and red leaf lettuce, tend to offer more nutrients than pale iceberg types. The practical method is simple. Plant loose leaf lettuce instead of only head lettuce. Once the leaves are large enough, cut the outer leaves with scissors, leaving the inner crown untouched. Keep the soil evenly moist and provide partial shade in hot weather because heat makes lettuce bolt faster. And one packet of seeds can become weeks, even months, of fresh harvest. Lettuce teaches the first rule of continuous food: do not kill what can keep feeding you. 14. Spinach. The cool season green that rewards gentle harvesting. Spinach is another plant modern people often harvest too aggressively. They pull it up, they cut it down, they treat it like a short-lived vegetable. But spinach has a quiet strength when grown in the right season and harvested with care. Old growers understood that cool weather greens were precious. They appeared when many summer crops were gone. They filled the gap between heavy harvest seasons. They brought minerals and strength into meals when fresh food was harder to find. Spinach thrives in cool weather because it dislikes heat. In spring and autumn, it can produce steadily for weeks. Now, in mild climates, it may continue even longer. The key is again in the harvest. Pick the outer leaves first. Leave the small center leaves alone. That center is the engine. As long as it remains healthy, the plant keeps producing. Spinach is valued because it is dense with nutrients. It provides folate, magnesium, iron, vitamin K, and carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin, which have been studied for eye health. It also contains nitrates, which research suggests may support healthy blood flow by helping the body produce nitric oxide. But here's where it gets interesting. Spinach is not just a healthy green. It is a survival green. It grows quickly. It fits into small spaces. It can be eaten raw when young, cooked when mature, blended into soups, added to eggs, mixed into rice, or folded into flatbreads. For modern growers, spinach works beautifully in containers, raised beds, and shaded garden edges. Sow seeds every 2 to 3 weeks in cool seasons, and you create a rolling harvest. Spinach does not shout for attention, it just keeps returning, leaf by leaf. 13. Swiss chard. The ancient green that behaves like a vegetable machine, Swiss chard looks almost too beautiful to be practical. Bright stems, wide glossy leaves, a plant that looks ornamental before people realize it is one of the most reliable food producers in the garden. But historically, chard and beet relatives were valued because they were tough, useful, and generous. They could grow in conditions where more delicate greens struggled. They offered leaves for cooking again and again without needing to be replanted constantly. Damn, this is why chard deserves a serious place in any food garden. Unlike spinach, chard handles heat better. Unlike lettuce, it does not collapse as quickly in warm weather. And unlike many greens, it can keep producing for months when harvested correctly. The biology is simple but powerful. Chard stores energy in its root system and keeps pushing out new leaves from the central crown. When you remove the outer leaves, the plant responds by growing more. Nutritionally, chard is rich in vitamin K, magnesium, potassium, and plant antioxidants. Its deep green leaves contain pigments and polyphenols that have been studied for their role in cellular protection and inflammation balance. But its real value is practical. One mature chard plant can become a weekly harvest source. You can chop the leaves into soups, sauté them with garlic, add them to stews, mix them into lentils, or use the tender young leaves like spinach. The stems can also be cooked separately, adding texture and color. For small space growers, plant chard in a deep container with good soil. Give it sunlight, water it consistently, and harvest the oldest leaves near the base. This is not a fragile salad plant. Swiss chard is a long-term worker. 12. Kale, the cold hardy plant that becomes sweeter. Under stress, kale has become a modern health trend, but it is not new. Long before it appeared in smoothies and wellness cafes, hardy cabbage family greens were grown by traditional communities because they could survive difficult seasons. Kale was not valued because it was fashionable. It was valued because it endured. That is the deeper lesson. Some plants produce food in perfect conditions, and no kale produces when the garden starts getting uncomfortable. Cool weather often improves its flavor. Light frost can make the leaves taste sweeter because the plant converts some starches into sugars as a protective response. Old gardeners noticed this long before anyone explained the chemistry. Kale can keep producing leaves for months if you harvest from the bottom up and leave the top growing crown intact. Cut the whole plant and the harvest ends. Take leaves carefully and the plant continues. Kale is dense with nutrients. Vitamin K, vitamin C, beta-carotene, calcium, fiber, and glucosinolates, compounds found in cruciferous vegetables that have been studied for their role in supporting the body's natural detoxification systems. But the power of kale is not only in its nutrition, it is in its reliability. It can be steamed, sautéed, added to soups, baked into chips, chopped into grain bowls, or massaged raw with olive oil and lemon. It freezes well after blanching, making it useful beyond the fresh harvest. And here is the part many beginners miss. Kale does not need to be harvested when leaves are huge and tough. Smaller leaves are often sweeter and more tender. Kale teaches an old-world principle: the best food plants are not always the softest. Sometimes the strongest plants feed you the longest. 11. Collard greens. The southern workhorse that keeps feeding families. Collard greens are not delicate. They are broad, sturdy, resilient leaves built for cooking, feeding, and lasting. In many traditional food cultures, plants like collards were essential because they could produce large amounts of edible greens over a long period. And this was not decorative gardening. This was practical food security. Collards can tolerate heat better than many leafy greens and can also handle cool weather. That gives them a long production window in many climates. Like kale, they belong to the Brassica family, but they produce smoother, wider leaves that are excellent for slow cooking. The harvest method is simple. Remove the lower outer leaves and keep the central growing point alive. The plant continues pushing new leaves upward, almost like a green fountain. Collards provide fiber, calcium, vitamin K, vitamin C, and protective plant compounds. Their fiber supports digestion and the gut microbiome. Their mineral density makes them valuable in diets that need stronger plant-based nutrition. But what makes collards especially powerful is how filling they are. A few large leaves can become a full side dish. They can be simmered, chopped into soups, used as wraps, or cooked with beans and grains to create hearty meals. For modern small space growers, collards may need more room than lettuce, but one or two plants can produce far more food over time than many people expect. This is why traditional kitchens respected them. Collards are not quick glamour. They are dependable abundance. 10. Green onions, the small plant. That regrows like a secret green onions may be one of the most underestimated continuous food plants in the world. Most people buy them in a bunch, use the tops, throw away the roots, and never realize they just discarded a living food source. Traditional households wasted less because they observed more. If a plant still had roots, it still had potential. Green onions, also called scallions or spring onions, can regrow after cutting because the bulb and root base remain alive. Cut the green tops, leave a few inches above the root, and the plant sends up new shoots. This can happen again and again. The flavor is sharp, fresh, and useful in almost every kitchen. Green onions can lift soups, eggs, rice, noodles, salads, beans, sauces, and stir-fries. A handful can change the taste of a simple meal. Nutritionally, they provide vitamin K, vitamin C, sulfur-containing compounds, and antioxidants. Like other allium plants, they have been studied for potential cardiovascular and antimicrobial properties, though they should be understood as supportive foods, not medicine. The practical method is almost effortless. Plant the rooted bottoms in soil, or keep them temporarily in water near a bright window. Soil is better for long-term regrowth because it gives minerals back to the plant. Trim the tops as needed and let them regrow. In containers, green onions are excellent. They do not need much space. They grow in clusters. They can be harvested almost any time. Green onions prove that continuous food does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a small green shoot coming back after everyone else would have thrown it away. 9. Basil, the herb that produces more. When you cut it. Basil is one of those plants that rewards people who understand its behavior. Ignore it, and it may grow tall, flower quickly, and become woody. Harvest it correctly, and it becomes bushier, fuller, and more productive. This is where old garden knowledge becomes almost elegant. Traditional growers learned that some plants do not weaken when cut properly. They respond by branching. Basil is one of the best examples. When you pinch or cut basil above a pair of leaf nodes, the plant often sends out 2 new stems from that point. 1 stem becomes 2, 2 become 4. With repeated pruning, basil turns from a single vertical plant into a leafy bush. That means more harvest. Basil has a long history in Mediterranean, Asian, and Old World kitchens. It was valued not only for taste, but for its ability to make simple foods more satisfying. A few leaves could transform tomatoes, grains, soups, sauces, oils, and vegetables. Modern analysis shows basil contains aromatic compounds such as eugenol, linalool, and rosmarinic acid. One of these compounds contribute to its fragrance and have been studied for antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potential. But the practical value is immediate. Fresh basil can make homegrown food feel rich. It can become pesto, tea, infused oil, chopped garnish, salad flavor, or sauce base. And if you prevent flowering by regular harvesting, the plant can keep producing for months in warm weather. Grow basil in sunlight, keep it warm, water consistently, and harvest the top portions often. Never strip all leaves from one plant. Leave enough growth so it can recover. Basil teaches a powerful gardening lesson. Some plants give more when you stop being afraid to cut them. 8. Mint, the aggressive survivor that keeps coming back. Mint is almost impossible to stop once it is happy. That is both a warning and a gift. Traditional households valued mint because it was refreshing, easy to use, and incredibly resilient. It could be added to teas, cooling drinks, sauces, chutneys, salads, and digestive preparations. In many cultures, mint was one of the first plants people reached for after heavy meals. Modern research has studied mint varieties for their aromatic oils, including menthol, which gives peppermint its cooling effect. Mint teas have been traditionally used to support digestion, though strong medicinal claims should be avoided. Its real daily value is flavor, freshness, and usefulness. But mint's greatest strength is its persistence. It spreads through underground runners. Cut it, and it returns. Harvest it, and it regrows. Give it soil and water, and it may try to take over the entire bed. That is why smart growers keep mint in containers. A pot of mint can produce leaves for months, especially in warm seasons. Cut stems just above a node, and the plant branches again. Use the leaves fresh or dry them for later. Mint can flavor water, tea, yogurt sauces, fruit bowls, soups, grain dishes, and herbal blends. It can make ordinary food feel alive. But here is the deeper point. Mint reminds us that some of the most useful plants are not fragile. They are almost wild. They do not need constant attention. They need boundaries. That is old world wisdom too. Not every strong plant should be given unlimited space. 7. Parsley, the quiet mineral herb that produces again and again. Parsley is often treated like decoration, a little green garnish pushed to the side of the plate. But historically, parsley was much more than garnish. It was a kitchen herb, a digestive herb, a flavor builder, and a source of fresh green nutrition when meals needed brightness. Parsley is a biennial plant, meaning it can live through more than one growing season in the right conditions. In its first season, it focuses on leaf production. That is the stage growers want. Harvest the outer stems near the base, and parsley keeps sending new growth from the center. Like many repeat producers, the secret is not to destroy the crown. Parsley contains vitamin K, vitamin C, folate, iron, and aromatic compounds. It also contains flavonoids such as apigenin, which has been studied for biological activity. But beyond the lab, parsley's value is practical. It makes food taste cleaner, fresher, and more complete. A handful of parsley can lift lentils, beans, eggs, soups, roasted vegetables, fish, rice, salads, and sauces. It is one of the easiest ways to add fresh plant matter to a meal without changing the entire recipe. Parsley grows well in containers, though it germinates slowly. Once established, it is steady. Give it sun to partial shade, regular water, and harvest from the outside. There is something important hidden in this small herb. The plants that change daily eating are not always the biggest. Sometimes they are the ones you use constantly. Parsley does not dominate the garden. It quietly improves everything it touches. 6. Cherry tomatoes. The small fruit factory that rewards. Picking tomatoes are one of the great garden pleasures. But cherry tomatoes are in a special category because many varieties produce again and again over a long season. Unlike determinate tomatoes, which produce most of their crop in a shorter window, many indeterminate cherry tomato plants keep growing, flowering, and fruiting until cold, disease, or stress stops them. That makes them one of the most exciting continuous harvest plants. Traditional growers valued tomatoes once they spread through food cultures because they were versatile, flavorful, and productive. Small tomatoes especially could be eaten fresh, dried, cooked, preserved, or added to almost anything. The biology is simple. As the plant grows upward, it creates new flower clusters. Those flowers become fruit. If the plant remains healthy and the fruit is picked regularly, production continues. Cherry tomatoes are rich in vitamin C, potassium, and lycopene, a carotenoid studied for its antioxidant properties and potential cardiovascular support. Their skins also provide fiber and additional plant compounds, but their real power is emotional. A ripe cherry tomato picked warm from the plant tastes nothing like a supermarket tomato. It reminds people why growing food matters. For practical growing, choose indeterminate varieties if you want long production. Give them strong support, full sun, deep watering, and regular feeding. Pick ripe fruit often so the plant keeps directing energy into more production. Even one container-grown cherry tomato can produce bowls of fruit over the season, and here is the lesson. Some plants do not just feed the body, they restore your respect for freshness. 5. Peppers. The heat-loving plant that keeps setting fruit peppers are built for patience. They do not always explode with growth immediately. They wait for warmth, they establish roots. Then, when the conditions are right, they begin producing flowers and fruit, often continuing for months. Sweet peppers, chili peppers, and many small varieties can be extremely productive when harvested regularly. Traditional food cultures across the world valued peppers for more than heat. They brought flavor, color, preservation value, and intensity to meals. A small pepper could transform a pot of beans, a sauce, a stew, or a fermented preparation. Modern nutrition gives peppers even more importance. Sweet peppers can be rich in vitamin C, while chili peppers contain capsaicin, the compound responsible for heat. La capsaicin has been studied for metabolism, circulation, and pain signaling, though its effects depend on dose, tolerance, and individual health. But from a grower's perspective, the magic is this. Picking peppers encourages more production. When fruit is left too long, the plant puts energy into maturing seeds. When you harvest regularly, the plant often continues setting new flowers. Peppers grow well in containers because they like warm soil and good drainage. They need sun, steady watering, and support if heavily loaded with fruit. Smaller chili varieties can be especially generous in limited space. Use peppers fresh, dried, roasted, fermented, powdered, or frozen. A productive plant can flavor food long after the growing season ends. Peppers teach that abundance is not always measured by weight. Sometimes, one small fruit changes the entire meal. 4. Zucchini. The plant that can overwhelm a kitchen. Zucchini has a reputation for a reason. When it starts producing, it can feel unstoppable. Many gardeners joke that if you turn your back for one day, a small zucchini becomes a giant. But behind the humor is a serious food security plant. Zucchini can produce repeatedly over weeks or months when healthy, pollinated, and harvested often. Traditional growers valued summer squash because it was fast, versatile, and filling. Unlike winter squash, which is grown to maturity for storage, zucchini is harvested young and tender. This allows the plant to keep producing more fruit instead of putting all its energy into mature seeds. That is the key. Pick zucchini when they are small to medium-sized. Do not let every fruit become huge. The more you harvest, the more the plant is encouraged to continue. Zucchini provides water, fiber, potassium, vitamin C, and mild flavor that absorbs other ingredients well. It can be sautéed, grilled, shredded into fritters, added to soups, spiralized, baked, stuffed, or mixed into breads. Its value is not that it has the most intense flavor. Its value is that it gives volume. In a food garden, volume matters. A plant that can bulk up meals for months is not ordinary. It is strategic. Zucchini needs full sun, rich soil, consistent water, and space. For small gardens, choose compact bush varieties. Watch for powdery mildew and remove damaged leaves to improve airflow. The deeper reason zucchini matters is simple. Some plants give you ingredients. Zucchini gives you meals. 3. Nigiri okra. The heat-proof producer that thrives when others quit. When summer becomes too hot for many vegetables, okra keeps going. That is why it has been valued in warm regions for generations. Okra does not merely tolerate heat, it often thrives in it. While lettuce bolts, spinach fades, and peas collapse, Okra rises taller and keeps producing pods. This makes it one of the most important long-season food plants for hot climates. Okra pods grow quickly after flowering and should be harvested young, usually when tender. If pods are left too long, they become tough and the plant may slow production. Regular harvesting keeps the plant active. Okra is rich in fiber, especially mucilaginous fiber, which gives it that slippery texture when cooked. And that same texture has made it useful in traditional soups and stews as a natural thickener. Its fiber may support digestion and help moderate blood sugar response as part of a balanced meal. It also provides vitamin C, vitamin K, folate, magnesium, and antioxidants. But what makes okra remarkable is resilience. It grows in heat, it handles strong sun, it produces vertically, making it useful even where ground space is limited. Some varieties can be grown in large containers. Use okra in stews, stir-fries, curries, roasted dishes, pickles, or grilled preparations. If you dislike the texture, high heat roasting or quick sautéing can reduce the sliminess. Okra is not a plant for timid gardeners. It is a plant for people who understand heat as an asset. When the garden gets difficult, okra gets serious. 2. Netto pole beans. The vertical crop that keeps climbing and producing bush beans give a harvest. Pole beans give a season. That is the difference. Pole beans climb upward, producing flowers and pods over an extended period. As long as you keep picking, many varieties keep producing. This makes them one of the smartest plants for small space food production because they use vertical space instead of spreading across the ground. Traditional growers understood vertical abundance. Fences, poles, branches, and trellises were not just supports, they were food structures. Beans also hold a special place in Old World and indigenous agricultural systems because they provide plant protein, fiber, and soil benefits. As legumes, beans work with soil bacteria to fix nitrogen, improving fertility in the growing system. And fresh green beans provide fiber, vitamin C, folate, and minerals. Mature dry beans offer more protein and calories, but even fresh pods are valuable because they can be harvested again and again. The practical rule is crucial: pick often. If pods mature fully on the vine, the plant may slow down because it has achieved its biological goal, seed production. But if you harvest pods young, the plant keeps trying. Grow pole beans on a strong trellis in full sun. Keep soil evenly moist, especially during flowering. Harvest every couple of days when production is strong. Use them steamed, sautéed, stir-fried, added to soups, or preserved by freezing. Pole beans reveal one of the most important food-growing principles. When you grow upward, small spaces become much larger. 1. Malabar spinach, the ancient heat-loving vine that produces when other greens fail. And now we come to one of the most overlooked continuous food plants for warm climates, Malabar spinach. Despite the name, it is not true spinach, and that is part of its strength. True spinach struggles in heat. Malabar spinach loves it. It is a climbing vine with thick, glossy leaves that can keep producing through hot weather when ordinary greens have already quit. Traditional growers in tropical and subtropical regions valued plants like this because they filled a critical gap. In heat, people still needed greens. They still needed minerals, fiber, and fresh food. Malabar spinach answered that need. The leaves are tender, slightly succulent, and mild. They can be cooked like spinach, added to soups, stir-fried, used in curries, or mixed into stews. Because the texture is slightly mucilaginous, it can also thicken dishes naturally. Nutritionally, Malabar spinach offers vitamins A and C, minerals, fiber, and protective plant pigments. Its deep green leaves support the same broad category of benefits people seek from leafy greens: better diet quality, more plant compounds, and more fresh food diversity. But its real value is seasonal intelligence. This plant produces when other greens fail. It climbs, so it saves space. It responds well to regular harvesting. The more you pick tender shoots and leaves, the bushier and more productive it can become. Grow it on a trellis, fence, or balcony support. Give it warmth, sun, and steady moisture. In hot climates, it can become a living wall of edible leaves. And this is why Malabar spinach deserves the top position. It solves one of the oldest gardening problems: how to keep eating greens when the weather turns against you. That is not just a plant, that is strategy. When you look at these 15 plants together, a pattern appears. The smartest food gardens are not built only on one-time harvests. They are built on plants that keep giving, leaf by leaf, pod by pod, fruit by fruit, stem by stem. This is what traditional growers understood. They were not primitive. They were observant. They watched how plants behaved. They learned which ones returned after cutting, which ones climbed instead of spread, which ones survived heat, which ones handled cold, and which ones could feed a household quietly for months. Modern life made food feel distant, wrapped in plastic, priced by the week, disconnected from soil, weather, and patience. But a continuous harvest garden brings that connection back. You do not need a farm to begin. You can start with a pot of green onions, a container of basil, a few lettuce plants, a trellis of beans, a cherry tomato near a sunny wall. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to build a small living system that gives something back again and again, because once you understand continuous producers, you stop asking, how much can I harvest today? You start asking a better question. What can I plant now that will still be feeding me months from now? And that question changes everything. Comment below which of these 15 plants you would grow first, and if you already grow one, tell us which plant has surprised you the most. And subscribe for the next video, because we will keep uncovering the old world growing knowledge that modern people forgot, but can still use today.